love beer. Okay? Alright, it's time for another car video. The topic for today, alcohol. I want to share my experiences with alcohol with you guys in my life. You know, in the past and in the present. What's my view on alcohol, beer, wine, liquor? First of all, I'd like to say, you know, alcohol is a poison. I mean, alcohol is a deadly poison. So there's no way to say that alcohol is beneficial from a health perspective. You know, some people talk about benefits of alcohol. Oh, it lowers your blood pressure or whatever, but you got to think about it. Why do you have high blood pressure? It's not because you're not drinking alcohol, it's because you're, I don't know, eating too much salt maybe. You're having an unhealthy diet, which leads to high blood pressure. And the only healthful way to reduce your blood pressure would then be to eliminate whatever causes your high blood pressure. Not add a symptom treatment to that, which is what alcohol would be, treating the symptoms. That's what medications do. So the fact that alcohol lowers blood pressure is not a benefit. It's just one of the sort of aspects of what alcohol does to the body. Of course, you would die if you had too much alcohol. We can tolerate a little bit. We can burn some of it. The liver takes care of that, but we cannot take too much of it though. So unhealthy for sure. Anyone seeking optimal health needs to eliminate alcohol out of their life. That's for sure. Now, can you get away with a little bit though? Of course you can. You can still be pretty healthy and have a little bit of alcohol every now and then. It's not like it's a huge deal. But that's the truth with anything unhealthy. You know, you can tolerate a little bit of it, but that doesn't mean that it's healthy still. It's still unhealthy. So, best to avoid alcohol if you want optimal health. Now, there are cultural considerations here still though, because if you think about it, alcohol is a drug that's very socially accepted nowadays. Has been for thousands of years actually. It's one of the most common drugs that humans have been taking throughout history. It's I guess more than alcohol itself, it's the drinks that contain alcohol that are culturally you know, important. Things like beer, wine, those two in particular, I guess. So those drinks, beer and wine, let's talk about them. Well, they are very culturally sort of linked. They're linked to our culture, and a lot of people find that if they are to eliminate alcohol, they feel like they're missing out a little bit on a cultural heritage, so to speak. And I can understand that. There's a certain, you know, we associate good times with these drinks. Personally though, I'll tell you my personal view and my personal story. I love beer, okay? It started for me when I was like, I don't know, 6, 7. I was intrigued by my dad's beer, and I was smelling it, and I mean, I can't remember this particularly, but I know this is what happened, and he's told me as well. You know, I asked, can I taste it? Can I have one sip or something like that? Well, I had a sip, and I was instantly in love with beer. As a kid, I loved beer. Of course, I couldn't drink beer, but I loved the taste, the little taste test that I got. And so I remember in elementary school when all the kids brought candy to school, like maybe last day of school every year we would have candy and we would celebrate. Everyone would bring their Coca-Colas and Fantas and all that. Well, I would drink alcohol-free beer. That's what I would bring. I brought alcohol-free beer, and it was not just to make it was not just to sort of shock people or anything, nothing like that. I actually loved the taste of beer. So alcohol-free beer, I drank that as a kid, and I loved it. As I became older, of course, I started drinking a normal beer, with alcohol probably quite early. I mean, as a 13-year-old, I got sort of drunk for the first time. 14-year-old, 15. When I was 15, I was certainly drinking alcohol quite regularly. I was never one of those people that got super drunk though, and I was never very interested in getting drunk often. Many of my friends would get totally wasted like every weekend when we were like 17, that sort of thing, 18. I was never like that. I've never enjoyed getting drunk. It's just not something that I enjoyed. I mean, it's not. I didn't like the loss of control. I didn't like being nauseous. I didn't like the hangover, that's for sure. But every now and then I would get a little bit drunk though. You know, drinking 3 liters of beer or something in a night. That's sort of my limit usually. That was my limit. I don't do that anymore. So yeah, I loved beer. I was never into wine all that much, although a little bit. I was a waiter at an Italian restaurant for a while, and I learned a lot about wine. And I liked that sort of rich sort of culture and gustatory gastronomy, I guess, and all that stuff. I like that. I've been on a couple of, well, just one wine tour in Australia with my parents once when they were visiting me when I was living there. So never gotten into wine really though, and I definitely never liked liquor and stuff. Hard alcohol, that was never my thing. It was just difficult to control it. It was just suddenly you were drunk, and I didn't like that. So I usually sticked to beer. As I grew older yet, you know, got into my 20s, living alone in Sydney and London eventually, I kept drinking alcohol. But I was this is about the same time as I started, well, that started earlier. I started getting into cannabis as well, and that's another story altogether. But needless to say, at a certain point I preferred cannabis over alcohol. I didn't like how alcohol made me lose myself, you could say, you know, get sort of, yeah, lose control, whereas cannabis was the opposite. Cannabis made me more myself. I felt more sort of in tune with myself and in control. So I preferred cannabis. I started slowly getting into healthy living as well. And so in London, as I was moving towards, you know, I was already becoming vegetarian, vegan eventually. And that same period, I started eliminating alcohol from my life, drinking less and less. You know, I'd have a beer for dinner or something like that, but less and less I'll even do that. I'd start shifting over to alcohol-free beer again, just like when I was a kid. And eventually I decided to stop drinking alcohol altogether. Probably when I was about 25 or something like that. I can't remember. Shortly after, I became a vegan, and I became a raw vegan and fruitarian, and I started traveling the world, and you know the rest. So I haven't drunk alcohol for many years. Now, I'm happy about that decision. It's great for health. But in the last 3 years or so, I did sort of realize that I miss beer. You know, I do miss beer. It's just like we miss things that we've used to eat all our lives. When we stop eating it, we end up missing it a little bit. That's normal. And I was asking myself, you know, how bad is it to have a beer? And I came to the conclusion, this is my opinion as of now. I don't think it's such a big deal. I mean, even if it is alcohol in the beer, having one beer, it's literally water with grains. I mean, it's just grain water. It's more nutritious than a soda pop, and it's just, yeah, there's gluten in there, which is not ideal. There are lectins in there, not ideal. And then there's alcohol in there, not ideal. But the amount, if you have like one beer once a week or something like that, I can't see how that's gonna affect you too much. So I had a beer again. I went ahead and had a beer, and it was so good. I love beer. But I didn't like the effects of the alcohol, and I think I noticed some negative effects of lectins too. I'm pretty sensitive to that, to grains and stuff. And so, yeah, I didn't sort of like it that much, but I found that every now and then it was worth sacrificing a little bit of health just to get a beer. It might also sometimes be a cultural thing for me, like you know, if it's the middle of summer and I'm at a barbecue or something, everyone's having a beer, I might have a beer, you know, just for the social, cultural fix. And then again, I do love the taste, so I might every now and then sacrifice a little bit of health, and have a beer. I wouldn't do it daily though. I wouldn't do it on a regular basis. I certainly wouldn't drink more than one. I've come to hate the effects of alcohol. It's just not nice at all. I used to like it a little bit, at least the first 3 beers, but nowadays just one sip of an alcohol beverage and I'm feeling it's just unpleasant. I don't like it. I've become too used to being completely pure, you know, in my body, so I don't like it. So that means that most of the time when I have beer, and it's not very often, I guess in a year I probably have 15 beers in a year, so a little bit more than once a month on average. And I've come to prefer alcohol-free beer. So typically I'll have maybe I'll have a few beers with alcohol every year, just because of that's what's available, or that's what, you know, whatever. And to get variety of tastes in the beer. There's more variety in the normal beer category, obviously, but I found some really good alcohol-free beers, and if I really want a beer, I prefer having an alcohol-free beer. Anyway, that's my story with beer. I don't see it as a big deal. Some people might be like, oh my god, he drinks beer. I don't care about that, but I want those people to know though that, think about it. I mean, is it really that big a deal that you have some grain juice? Yeah, grains are less than ideal. Alcohol is certainly less than ideal, but you gotta see things in perspective, you know what I mean? So anyway, every now and then I have a beer. Alcohol though, other than beer though, I do not touch alcohol at all. And as I said, if I could have beer without alcohol, craft beers, all kinds of beers, if there was like a huge variety of alcohol-free beer, I'd probably never touch alcohol itself. Like, I'll probably just stick to the alcohol-free versions. So, just to sort of wrap it up, I guess, what's the deal with alcohol? How should you deal with it? Well, you gotta deal with it the way you deal with it. Everyone's different. If you absolutely love drinking alcohol, then you probably have a problem. I mean, the taste itself and the drink and the sort of cultural significance of a beer or a glass of wine, I can appreciate that, but you don't want to do it on an everyday basis, that's for sure. Every now and then, maybe. I mean, what you do on a regular basis, day to day, that matters a lot. But what you do every now and then, that does not matter a lot. So even though we could become purists and sort of go for whatever is ideal, I still think it's you know, it's not necessary to do that from a health perspective. Your body can deal with a lot of things, and having a glass of wine on a special occasion, if you really like that, that's not going to affect you all that much, to be perfectly honest. If I had to choose between beer and wine though, I'd choose beer as the healthier alternative, in fact. I mean, there's just so many tannins in wine, but then again there's lectins in beer, so neither of them are ideal, of course, but they're tasty. They are tasty. Maybe you can find alcohol-free wine. I would love to know what you guys think about this in the comments. Let me know, you know, do you drink alcohol? Do you not? What's your reasons? What do you prefer, beer or wine? All that sort of thing. So please do let me know. got to realize though that if you have a need to drink alcohol, if you know what I mean, like if you really you gotta have a beer, that's where you gotta be careful. I mean, it's obviously very addictive, alcohol, the effects of it especially. People like those effects. It's numbing, it's pain numbing, and it's also emotionally numbing, and people like that. I don't like that. I think if you are seeking health, alcohol is one of your worst enemies, because it will numb you and it will poison you, literally. And for a lot of people, black and white is easier. You know, there's so many shades of gray. Black and white is much easier to deal with. What I mean by that is, if you have a problem with alcohol or anything, any food or anything like that, it's probably going to be easier for you to quit or to not drink if you just have a rule that you never drink. Like, it's easier to just go cold turkey, get it out of your life. I'm not touching that again. That's how I am with vegan things, just because of ethical reasons for the most part, but also nutritional reasons, obviously. I am not touching animal products ever again, except insects maybe. I don't know, that's another discussion. But yeah, it's easier for most people to handle a regimen where it's black and white. You either consume something as much as you want, or you never touch it. So if you have a problem with alcohol, if you're not able to sort of be relaxed in this matter, it's better for you probably to just eliminate it altogether. But if you are like me, who can do something based on preference, what I mean by that is, when I eat something less than optimal, when I drink a beer or whatever, I notice the effects, the negative effects, and those negative effects motivate me to avoid it. So I'm taking feedback from my body, and that motivates me to avoid doing that again. So whenever I do it, it's a conscious choice. I'm consciously sacrificing a little bit of health to get that experience. But then after doing it once or twice, I typically find that, I've had enough for a while. I'm just like, I don't want to feel like that again tomorrow or whatever, so I'll just leave it. And then a few weeks or months down the road, I might feel like having a beer again. I'll have a beer again, but then I'm off it again for a few weeks. It's sort of self-regulating. If you're like that, then you can probably handle it, whatever it is, because you're in control. But if you're not in control, and you're not able to sort of regulate your intake, and you end up just consuming more and more and more, drinking more and more and more, needing your beer on an everyday basis, well, then you're probably better off just eliminating altogether. Black and white. Alright, I'm just rambling. These car videos tend to become quite long. If you're still watching at this point, tell me in the comments. Tell me you're still watching towards the end. I'd love to know how many of you guys are watching so this far. Anyway, I appreciate you. I appreciate you watching these videos. It's strange. Here I am all alone in the car, talking to a camera, and there you are, watching it. Interesting time we're living in, for sure. Anyway, I hope you're having a good day. My day is going well. I'm gonna drink my smoothie now. I have it with me here, my lunch. Already drank a little bit actually before I made the video. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.